with us our old friend Alex Lawson, the Executive Director of Social Security Works, socialsecurityworks.org, strengthensocialsecurity.org, ALaw202 on Twitter, or SSWorks. And Alex, welcome back. I got this book in the mail, the postal mail, from the Centers for Medicare Services, CMS, last week or early this week, I forget which. That speaks well of Medicare Advantage plans. What's going on with these publications?
Yeah, and you're, I guess, one of the lucky ones, because the hardback version, which you got, is actually the updated version, and it is better than what some people got if they just went online, and it's in the process of being updated to that handbook. The thing to remember is that during the Trump years, the Trump administration did everything they could to actually put their whole weight on the scale in favor of Medicare Advantage. So the entire apparatus of choosing your Medicare coverage was weighted in favor of Medicare Advantage. And we've been fighting, as you know, Tom, fighting against those hangover effects, sometimes winning, sometimes losing. But it's just part of the same struggle. Right now, what we're saying to CMS is even the handbook you have is too generous, right? I mean, the government's own accountability office and the government's own investigators consistently, year after year, warn against wrongful delays and denials in Medicare Advantage. So we say that CMS needs to put that in there, right? It needs to accurately reflect what the government itself has found, which is that Medicare Advantage is dangerous to people, right? Maybe it works for some people, mainly people who are healthy. And I said maybe twice. I don't actually believe that corporate health insurance really works for anybody. But what we need to do is protect people, even if they've chosen Medicare Advantage, because, you know, they haven't been getting accurate information. We need to protect everyone, regardless, Medicare Advantage or traditional Medicare. We need to protect everyone who is in Medicare. And for everyone who's signing up, we need to tell them the honest truth. And you know the truth, Tom. The truth is Medicare Advantage is not Medicare. Medicare Advantage is corporate insurance. Medicare Advantage means delays and denials, prior authorizations. And now what we're seeing is these basically non-existent networks, or networks that are collapsing. And what that means, Tom, is, you know, you think you can go to the hospital that you've grown up with, that's around the corner. It's your hospital. But lo and behold, you find out that it's out of network in your Medicare Advantage. So that's not coverage. That's inadequate networks. And we think that CMS really needs to do a better job of getting the word out there about the dangers of Medicare Advantage, especially right now in open enrollment season.
You would think that, given all of the problems with Medicare Advantage, not to mention the fact that these Advantage providers, these private for-profit health insurance companies, are ripping off our federal government to the tunes of tens of billions of dollars a year, that they, well, I don't know if they acknowledge it, but the federal government acknowledges are basically fraud and theft. But they just refuse to do anything about it, or at least they refused to do anything about it during the 4 years of the Trump administration. Is CMS waking up to some of these crimes, and are they going after these people? And what's it going to take to get them to honestly characterize Medicare Advantage online and in these books that they send out?
It's a great question, Tom. I mean, the truth is, you know, under Trump, it was full speed ahead at privatization of Medicare. Under President Biden, you have seen multiple things that he's done to strengthen traditional Medicare, allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. He did put in place last year these rules. It's pretty esoteric stuff, but it aimed at making the prior authorization problem better, and it aimed at making the overpayment problem better. Not nearly enough, but those steps were literally the first steps I've seen the federal government take away from running into the hands of private insurance in the whole time I've been working on this. So I want to say, you know, it's absolutely not enough. And during open enrollment season is when it's most obvious, right? Like the number one thing I'd get across to all your listeners is, if you're watching football and one of those MA commercials comes on, just hit mute and go and get food during that. Like, those are absolutely, it's just lies. And they're tricking people through fancy advertising to sign up for health insurance that doesn't actually provide them what they need. No security. They don't even know if their local hospital is covered. So yes, the Biden administration is taking baby steps in the right direction, but we need to be taking strides in the right direction. We need to be really getting out there to people the correct information about the benefits of traditional Medicare. With traditional Medicare, there's no delays, there's no denials, there's no networks. You go to a doctor and that it's paid for, right? That is how Medicare works. That's Medicare. With Medicare Advantage, you have some doctors are in your network, some aren't. Some bureaucrat in the company can always say, oh, you can't get that thing that your doctor said that you need. They also do a thing, Thom, that I think is reprehensible, which is focused a lot in like skilled nursing and rehab, where they downgrade stuff. So the doctor says you definitely need 9 weeks of physical therapy after this fractured hip or whatever. And some bureaucrat in the insurance company just overrules your doctor and is like, nah, they need 3 weeks. 2 weeks is all they'll get, right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that kills people, especially in the Medicare population. Seniors, people with disabilities, these are the people who cannot have their care interfered with by some, bureaucrat whose sole aim is to make money. Right. They're not in the business of providing health care. They're in the business of making money.
They're in the business of denying health care, actually. I mean,
absolutely. That's how they make money.
That's where a lot of their efforts go. It's really quite remarkable. Okay, so you've got this publication here, and costs in original Medicare are misleading. The coverage in Medicare Advantage is misleading. The supplemental coverage in original Medicare is misleading. The supplemental coverage in Medicare Advantage is misleading. Doctors and hospital choice in original Medicare, misleading. Quality of care in original Medicare, misleading. Travel coverage in original Medicare, misleading. What the hell is going on here, Alex?
I know, and it's like that's supposed to be the good guy in this, right? Like, the bad guy is the annoying Joe Namath commercials where the insurance company is lying to you to further their bottom line. But unfortunately, CMS and the organs of the government that are supposed to be working for the people, we're their boss. They do seem to have been fully captured previously by industry.
So how is this working? Is this that you've got a bunch of bureaucrats at the Centers for Medicare Services, and this would have to, management would have to be in on this to sign off on this stuff, who basically are figuring that if they dance to the tune of the Medicare Advantage providers, that when they leave government service, there'll be $1 million a year job waiting for them as a senior vice president of government relations or something at one of these big companies? Is that what's going on?
That's a huge part of what is the Iron Triangle, or, it's the same thing, the military industrial complex, but it is when the government is locked in with the private industry that they're supposed to be regulating or working in, but instead the industry controls the government to the industry's advantage. It has to do with personnel who are burrowed in there, who are actually advancing the interests of the private companies. It has to do with just sort of the bureaucratic inertia of policy. Once policies are put in place, they sort of just keep going unless you actively stop them with other policies. And really what it is, Thom, as you know, in Washington, D.C., there's so many things going on that a lot of stuff is just allowed to continue unless it is such a problem that someone is forced to take notice of that. And that's what we're doing now. That's where we are in this Medicare Advantage fight, is we're raising people's voices, and people are doing it on their own. It's not us who's doing it. This is really the delays and denials and prior authorizations are happening so widespread now that you're hearing about it and demanding our political leaders lean on CMS and HHS, the health parts of our government, and say, you can't do this anymore. You can't just pretend that there are no risks for Medicare Advantage. You have to actually be honest about the positives of traditional Medicare. No delays, no denials, no networks, and the dangers of Medicare Advantage: delays, denials, and inadequate networks.
Right. And the only thing that Medicare Advantage has going for it is that it's so profitable that the companies that run it, because they're basically ripping off you and me, the government, they're willing to offer it for less than the government sells Medicare for, basically. That's essentially it. And they'll throw in some bells and whistles, a phony baloney pretend, dental plan or hearing thing.
It is exactly that, Tom. And it also, though, that gives us our pathway forward, too, though, because right now the ripoff is so big that it's cheaper to actually give people in traditional Medicare subsidized supplemental coverage. So a wealth manager for a wealthy person in this country advises them always to get traditional Medicare and to purchase the best supplemental insurance there is. That's usually AARP's United Health Supplemental. Well, we just take that and we give it to people subsidized by Medicare Advantage costs more. So it costs $1.20 for every dollar that's spent on Medicare. We say if we spend $1.19 on people, then we're saving money over Medicare Advantage. And that gives us, in the sort of weird way that DC works, as long as it's saving money, we can actually build stuff with that. And that, I think, is a path forward to level the playing field between traditional Medicare and Medicare Advantage. Is like, let's just have a low-cost Medigap public option, and it's paid for by the overpayments that right now are just going to profit some CEO to buy a golden yacht. Let's give that money.
Has
to
anybody
the people.
proposed that in Congress?
We're working on it right now, Tom.
Good on you. Alex Lawson, the big cheese over at let's see, what's your title here? Executive Director, Social Security Works, and strengthensocialsecurity.org. Alex, thanks for dropping by.